Hey everybody, and welcome to the Drafting Offers Podcast, the podcast where you get to vote for each episode's draft champ. We're realtors from Southern Ontario, but this is not another real estate podcast. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, catch every episode on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us on social at the Drafting Offers Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brad Warner, Scott Morgan, and John Fielding. Well, welcome back everybody for another edition of the Drafting Offers Podcast. I gotta say, guys, I'm a little hurt. I'm a little heartbroken because of last week's draft. I actually thought that I had this one in the bag. Scott Morgan, Brad Warner, John Fielding, hey everybody.
I also thought I just had it locked and loaded with the indoor golf simulator and the 4-car garage. And every time I seemed to check on the draft, it seemed like I was winning, so I was surprised to hear the results.
Oh, always throwing it to the guy looking after the poll, but
less is sometimes more, though. The 3-car garage this time beat the 4-car garage. So what does that say about our
Price is
listeners?
Right rules? You went over. That's all.
That's it. That's it.
No, I think I did say that after this one, it was going to be the closest draft we've seen, and up until the last day, it was tied, and it was like by 3 votes, I think. So, and then I think after I had said that, we might be able to play this back in a clip and embarrass Brad again, but Brad said I was the only one who didn't have a chance. So
yeah, I didn't.
We might have to do the Curb Your Enthusiasm music again. And
seems like you always get all the votes on the last day and then win. That just seems like that's what happens. I guess John's won a few too, though. Recently, I've been in a slump.
One,
yeah,
a few.
Since your one Christmas win, we should start calling you Owen because you're Owen everything for the rest of this year.
Oh, good one, good one.
Make sure you get out and subscribe so that you don't miss this week's, which is a bit of a doozy, but we are realtors. This is not another real estate podcast. So why not just talk about real estate? So how are you seeing
what's going on in the hood,
Brad?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of the same as what we would have talked about on last podcast. I think we can all say that for sure. The one thing I'm finding is it's just getting busier and busier out on the road. I know that in the last 4 days, I've been in multiple offers twice. And, one time it was on the market, the house was on the market for 2 days and there were 7 offers. And then last night the house was on the market for less than 24 hours and there was multiple offers. So it's getting more and more and more competitive out there. What are you guys finding?
Well, so you're saying it's more competitive. How are you finding the sale prices? Are they showing how competitive it is, or is it still around where things have been for the last few months?
Yeah, our median sale price hasn't actually been affected that much. So we're finding the average sale is relatively close to the same as it was last month. The biggest difference is there's less conditions on any offers, and the days on the market is significantly smaller month over month. That we're finding on anything, especially if it's in, a decent neighborhood, move-in ready, priced well. Those are flying off the shelves in a matter of days at the moment. So
that's interesting. So are you finding it's asset class again? So certain price ranges, or is it kind of across the board?
It's not so much the price range rather than just a house in good shape that's not priced ridiculous. It's less about the actual class because the lower price stuff is always selling. That's never changed. But the higher end stuff, if it's priced well, it's going to be quick too. The one thing I'll say is around here, when it comes to rural properties, the rural properties that, you actually do have some privacy, whether it's just on an acre cut out into a farm field or it's a 15-acre property, those ones are moving extremely quick. And there's a lot of buyers out there looking for that specifically. I have multiple buyers myself looking out there for that. And when those come on, they're gone just like that.
Seems strange though. That seems to be like the opposite of what we saw for the last couple of years. I mean, people did want a little bit of property, but a lot of people were just like, oh, it's a well and it's a septic system and it's got a long driveway to shovel. I don't want any of that. I've seen a lot of multiple offer situations and I've seen a lot of just like kind of priced and I think one of the things that I have noticed is that the properties that are presented well are the ones that seem to attract the most buyers. And I mean, that's an obvious thing. Like we have seen that throughout our careers and we've been kind of taught like make the property look good and you'll attract the right buyer. But I think it's like I've seen a couple of missed opportunities because I've seen a couple of houses sell a lot less than what I thought they would sell for because they're just not presented properly. Like a listing that I had a client looking at a little while ago, the house was priced at 650 and it sold for 640. And it sold for $10,000 under asking. There was one offer. It was on the market for about a month, and it was a previous rental property. And so there was no staging, there wasn't a lot of improvements or anything like that. They didn't do anything to actually help sell the house. And for that, it probably just sold 10,000 under. Now, I think if they presented it properly, they probably could have got another 20, 30,000. And I think I have a buyer who probably would have paid that. It just goes to show that presenting a property properly is definitely the way to go, especially because of the competition. And I also see that people are not, with regard to price, I'm seeing that people are offering, there's a lot of multiple offer situations, and there's like, houses that go with 20, 30 offers sometimes. But people are still not willing to pay through the nose for a property. They're going to pay what it's worth. If they miss it, they miss it and they get another one, because the way things are going is that another property will come up. This isn't a situation where there's so few properties on the market. They're coming back, right? So if you miss one because you're not willing to pay hundreds of thousands over asking, there will be another one. And I think that's the mentality that some people have these days right now.
That's true for our area specifically, I would say, because we're in suburbia. So if you're not finding that needle in a haystack property or that unique property, there's usually the same model on that street. So they might get triggered leading into the spring to go, oh, okay, well, yeah, that one went. Maybe we'll list two. Yeah. So there is usually another one around the corner, and depending on price range, you get into something where you're looking for maybe like Brad was saying, more unique. You're getting a larger property, not just larger property, but then maybe if the septic is newer, or you're getting into things that are taken care of, it's a little bit more, we got to jump at this one and pay for that one. And I like your comment about presentation. I think we've hit that on a million times on this podcast, but how it's presented is so important, but it's also how it's marketed. So if your pricing strategy is to try and get every penny with that first list price, I think now that we're getting to the point of multiple offers and out our way, we're getting a lot of them, especially in the entry level up to about $1 million. If that buyer mindset is that a house comes out and they're delaying, the seller's expectations might be in and around where that price is. They just wanted to make sure it's getting the proper exposure. But the buyer's thing might be, well, we were just up against 18 offers last week. If we get in on this one, what's that actually going to go for? So there's been some where I'm seeing 34, 18 offers on a place, and it's going for an arm and a leg more and firm. And then there's others that are, you got to keep an eye on the offer date to see if it sells. And then you can actually circle back and you're seeing a bit of, not a steal, but a purchase price that you weren't expecting. And it's all about that strategy as to how it shows and how you list. So I think you hit the nail on the head with that one, John.
Yeah, and I'm going to touch on presentation just a little bit more. One of the recent properties we went and saw, the way that it was presented to like me as a realtor from a realtor made such a difference too, because when I booked a showing, they sent me, the well report, even though it was 8 years old, it matters. They sent me the bacteriological analysis test of the water. The potability test was already done. They sent me the roof receipt. They sent me the furnace receipt. They sent me the last time the septic was pumped. Like, all these vital things are so important too, because then when you're walking around the property with your buyer, it adds this extra element of confidence that this house is well taken care of. And that's always going to draw in more people and make people more likely to make an offer. For sure. There was no home inspection on this property, like no pre-home inspection, but just by having all these things ready to go for you, you feel confident in it, and you know that there's a professional on the other side. And I know when it's a less rural property, you might include all your utility bills and stuff like that, because those are the questions that the people are going to ask. And having that upfront and being prepared for these kind of questions, I think it goes a really long way.
Big time. And on the buying side too, I just had a listing that was in the 1.5 range. Based on days on market from what we were seeing in that neighborhood and in that price range, we were expecting maybe 2-3 weeks, depending on, we weren't delaying offers. We were priced relatively accurately. We had a buyer come out. I must have spoke to him on the phone 3 times. He came through twice. Not only did he come through twice, but one of our conversations, he outlined the buyers, he outlined their complete purchasing situation and put ease of mind to us, but it also made their offer look a lot stronger. We had a 48-hour irrevocable on this to allow, if there was a decent amount of traffic that was coming through, to allow for potential other offers, so it wasn't scooped away. he came forward with a great offer, but we had a picture of the check. He was ready to drop it off. He dotted his I's and crossed his T's, which on the other side, on the listing side, gives ease of mind to your sellers going, it's great if we get an amazing offer, but if it comes to closing date and there's no money or they can't close, this means nothing. So that preparation, like Brad was saying, and we always, I think this becomes an advertisement for good realtors of saying, do your homework and make sure that they're doing their job for you. We're not just putting a sign on the lawn, but doing those little things go a long way. That was nice working with you, Freddie, if you're one of the listeners.
Invoices and utility bills and things like that from the seller that they have kept, those things I kind of like better than a pre-list home inspection that was done by the seller. Just because you can't really hide anything, you can't really fake anything, and it gives you invoices, the actual dates, and who the company was that did the roof, and who the company is that's inspected the furnace and the HVAC and things like that. Because you can leave something out of a home inspection if you want to, right? Like if it's a pre-list home inspection, the home inspector discovers something, you might be able to be like, just kind of like pull that page out a little bit and like, oh, well, I'll give it to you if you ask, but I'm not going to just throw it at you, because
you're hitting a good topic there. Pre-list home inspections. Do you guys do those, or have you in the past?
No, I've said to people, I've said to sellers, this is something you can do if you like. It might help you sell, but it's not like if somebody really wants the house and they have genuine concerns that they want addressed, they will do their own inspection at their cost. So don't feel like you need to. That's just my opinion. And that's kind of what a lot of my sellers think as well. That's kind of their mentality. So
I've never been focused on it. I mean, I've presented it and talked to people about it in the past, but it's never been something that the seller has chose to do. So, I mean, I always make sure I go over with them all the disclosures that they're required to make, because there are certain disclosures you do have to make when it comes to a property. But no, I've never really been part of it. I've been on the buying side. I've done the pre-inspection before an offer, where the buyer does the home inspection before they even make the offer. I've been part of that way more often, obviously. But no, never with a seller. But I do know that there's certain people that do it, and I enjoy it when I'm on the buying side and they do have a home inspection. Whether you trust it 100% or not, it's still something to reference.
For sure. Well, and those home inspectors, they're not hiding things for the person they're doing the home inspection for. If they're selling their house, they have a reputation to abide by. So if they're trying to do a lot of work in that neighborhood or with those agents, they're not cutting corners or hiding things. I guess it would be more if you had an agent that didn't want to include that. But usually there's a summary page at the end, which is what's included. But I just find on the listing side, I don't generally do that either, or haven't, because you could be opening a can of worms now that the sellers are having to deal with, that you're having to disclose if asked.
I've listed properties that do have vermiculite in the attic, and we'll send away the vermiculite to get tested for asbestos prior to listing, because everybody's father-in-law who thinks they're a home inspector is going to see the vermiculite and go, oh, there's asbestos here. So you almost can kind of mitigate that negativity through any showing by testing the for asbestos, because most vermiculite doesn't have asbestos in it. I know you guys probably rarely even go through properties with vermiculite, but most vermiculite does not have asbestos, but obviously some does. But as soon as you see vermiculite, there's a stigma against it. So you want to try to avoid that. And then the same thing goes for like a rural property. You're going to get the water potability test before you list, because it's such an easy fix and it's going to have to be done anyways, bacterial analysis on it, because it's not even for the buyer or the seller as much as it's for the lender, because lenders won't give you a mortgage on water that's not potable. Before I list, I'll do those sort of things, but not typically a full home inspection.
I had a great home inspection experience in Belleville, as a matter of fact, about 4, maybe 5 years ago. And it was a house that I had a buyer buying a house in Belleville. And obviously I probably mentioned this before, but long before I met Brad. So they were
teeth there.
They were buying in Belleville and they wanted a kind of an older character house. And so we went to that part of town. We made an offer on this property, and it was over 100 years old. And the home inspector that we called in, that was, I don't know, recommended to me, I guess, or somebody that I found, came and he was like, I've already been here. Like, I've done this house before. I've inspected this house for the last buyer, which was like 2 or 3 years prior to that. He goes, yeah, I've already inspected this house. It's a fantastic house. And I love that because he's like, you know, this is actually kind of a remarkable house because this house is so old. If this house was built poorly, it'd be a pile of rubble by now. Like, this was a great house, and you're very lucky. So they were like, okay, we'll take it. waive our clause right then and there.
It's such a small town that we know all the inspectors and we know all the people that do the wells and the septics. Like, it's not that big of an area. So they often do, like, when you tell them the house, that they oftentimes the home inspectors have been in there before or been into a neighbor's house before.
The listing agent was somebody that you work with, so so I don't know. I'm sure you know who Gil is.
Absolutely,
I think it was Gil.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely do.
It was a great experience. I mean, he was really good, and he had experience with these kind of historic houses, and he understands the build. He understands how they were built, and he's not comparing it to a house that was built yesterday. He's comparing it to other houses from the time. So it's normal to have certain things because, like, the basement would have been a cistern, and it would have been full of water kind of thing. And so there's a lot of things that would be characteristic of an old house that are nothing to be concerned about, but just, compared to today's houses is a little bit different. So some people don't trust home inspectors because they think that it's just a cash grab. But honestly, these people they're looking in places that nobody would think to look at. And they're telling you about potential issues that you wouldn't necessarily know or think about. Like, the pipe is draining this way, and because it's draining this way, it's going to get in the way here. And if this happens and this is going to happen, it's going to be a chain reaction of things. And I'm like, I would never have known that. I just know that the pipe isn't clogged and the pipe is draining. And like, I just know that that's where it's supposed to go. And my basement is still dry. That's all I care about. But he's like, no, because if this happens, then this will happen and this will happen and this will happen. And I'm like, damn, this is why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah.
So it's generally like people that are contractors or handy, or do you remember those Canadian Tire commercials where there was that know-it-all neighbor that always would pop by? Like, it's those people that don't like home inspectors.
Exactly.
I'd say, like, the majority of people out there, they know they're on their side, and these people are trained to know what to look for, have their checklist of things.
There are some good neighbors out there. And I mean, we spent a little bit of time in a previous episode talking about bad neighbors and some of the things that grind our gears about our neighbors and living in the neighborhoods. But hey, you know what? It's a new year, new attitude. So let's talk a little bit about the best neighbors, huh? And that's
Good
this
neighbors.
week's that's this
Do you have a
week's
lot?
draft topic.
Do you have a lot of great neighbors, John? Are you someone who loves your neighbors?
I love my kid.
Love thy neighbor.
Depends on the neighbor. I can see quite a few. Well, where I am right now, I can probably see 2 or 3 houses across the street from me, and there's a couple on my block. And a lot of people, like, I'm fairly new to this neighborhood, and a lot of people kind of know each other. I've never been shy about talking about how I've got issues with my neighbors on one side, and their dog, and just the way that they kind of treat my property like it's an extension of their property. And
I'm fortunate. We have a lot of kids on our street. We have a lot of people on our street because we're in suburbia, and we got some great neighbors. So I had a few things, but I feel like a lot of the good neighbor things are just like not doing the bad neighbor things. Does that make sense? It's just like, don't do this. So it'll be interesting to see what comes from this. But no further ado, we're going to be sharing our screen. We should get a theme song. If anyone out there is a musician, wants to get a little Wheel of Names song while we put this thing on, can you see me okay? Let's get a spin in. John's 2 for 2 so far with being able to choose the order from the Wheel of Names. And where are we at here?
2 for 2.
This year.
Oh, this year, yes.
This year, yeah. Brad Warner choosing the order.
Hey.
Let's
Actually,
go.
We know Brad loves.
You're 2 for 3. I think Brad chose last time because
We know Brad likes his neighbors, and his neighbors like him.
Well, I would
Brad's got a lot of
say
neighbors in his corner.
we're like 3 different variations here. It feels like Scott is like best friends with all his neighbors and talks and chats and all that. John has a little bit of negative interactions with his neighbors. Mine is more like no interaction, like nothing. We're very like it's a really quiet neighborhood. Everyone's, I guess, friendly, but it's not like I know everyone's name.
So you
on my
toss the
street.
blinders on when you walk out?
I'll talk about it when we're in the draft, but I have examples of maybe what my neighborhood's like. But I'll pick. I don't know if there's a number one, so I'm gonna go with. I'll just pick first actually, and John can pick second, and Scott will pick third. And there's no reasoning behind it because I'm not sure if there's like a first overall big heavy hitter here.
I don't know, man. I kind of think there is, but you tell me what you think.
There's some top. I think it's a top third, and then it gets a little spacey after that. So I'm hoping to get a little bulk here at the end of the first and start of the second.
Right.
So lead the way, Brad.
All right. My first overall pick. This just makes your life a little easier, I would say. And my most important thing for a good neighbor is friendly interactions.
Boom.
Just overall friendliness. I don't want to feel stressed out when I'm home. I don't want to be walking on pins and needles around people. I just want people to be friendly to me, and I'll be friendly to them. And I would say that's a really good way to show what my street is like. It's not like everyone's best friends by any means, but everybody seems to be friendly and say hi to people when you walk by, but you don't know anything personal about them.
Yep. I think that's a great pick.
You don't even know their names. Do you know their names?
Yeah,
No.
So you don't know their names.
Actually, okay. So there's this one neighbor who lives 2 doors down from me, and last summer we were all out, like my whole family was out for a walk, and we were walking by her house, and she talks to us a little. Like we started talking a little bit, and she literally, like as we're walking away, she was like, "Welcome to the neighborhood," and we were like. Okay, like I know that we don't really know each other that well, but we've been living here for 11 years. So it's kind of that neighborhood. Everybody is nice to each other, but you're not in each other's business.
Yeah.
That sounds not like what our street is like.
No.
That's interesting. I like this too. I think I said before, like in the summers when I was in high school, we had a trailer park and everyone had golf carts, and like the wave, like if you're driving along, just to be able to give that little friendly wave just makes you feel a little more at home. Where there's certain times, I have to say, sometimes in our subdivision, you'll give the wave, and then they look at you and they're following you with their eyes, like, who the F is that?
Yeah.
Like, I see this guy every week, and maybe that's a sign of
I just keep waving.
The wave
at them, make them more and more uncomfortable every day.
The wave would be a great example of what my street is. Okay. It's everybody waves to each other. No one gets into very much detail.
Surface friendliness. Could be axe murderers living next door, but they give you that wave. They're great neighbors. Yeah. All right, Johnny's.
All right. My pick is going to be the neighbor with a pool. Because not everybody has one. And if you have a neighbor with a pool, you're golden. So as long as you're on good terms with that neighbor and you know their name and you give them the friendly wave, then I think it's kind of fair to say that neighbor is going to kind of reciprocate and say, hey, anytime you want to use the pool, come on over. So the neighbor who gives you carte blanche with their pool is my
neighbor who
pick.
Invites to pool.
Not a lot of pools.
I was going to say, because if you just said neighbor with a pool, like that, if they don't invite you, that's not great.
That's a bad neighbor.
The
neighbor with the pool, the neighbor who bogarts their pool. That's the bad neighbor draft.
Does the invite I guess the invite is almost more important than the action, because I don't know how often I'd even go swimming at a neighbor's house, but it'd be nice to be invited, I guess.
It would be nice. I mean, we had a pool. My house growing up, I had a pool, and and then there were neighbors on the street that didn't, and my parents were like, "Hey, anytime you guys want to come over and just use it," but like we weren't always there, and sometimes there were, as long as they were supervised and everything was all good. I mean, then that seems to be okay. But like the neighbor with the open invite that basically is like, "Mi casa es su casa," use our whatever pool is in Spanish. Anyway,
I actually think that the open invite almost goes along with that friendly interaction of like, no one's just going to show up at your door with their stuff on and just be like, hey, we're here to go swimming. Like, it's almost that blank statement of like being the nice person and then knowing that it's never going to. Yeah.
That's a 2024 thing. That's 2024. Like when we were children, if the neighbors like, you should come and swim, we would have absolutely went and swam. I think it's just a different world now.
When you're a kid, though.
Yeah, but when the kids like they kind of chat with each other and like they're hanging out, and then like Johnny would be like, "Hey, come on, swim in at my pool," and then it's okay. Where if like my neighbors are great, but if like we have neighbors down the street with a pool, and if they were to just be like, "Yeah, come whenever," I think they've even said that. I would never just show up at their door with my bathing suit on and my kid being like, "Hey, we're here for that swim you talked about."
Yeah,
you would need the invite, a second invite, but that's right. Open invites to pools is a nice gesture. It's a nice thing, and you'd be a nice person to do that. So
you need a little bit of warning. You need a little text just to say like, "Hey, what's the tip today?" Like just kind of a little nudge in there, like, hey, is cover off the pool, or can I bring some margaritas? Just kind of weasel your way in there. But
So I got 2 in a row here, and I'm happy because my first 2 that I thought were kind of the top dogs. So there was no 1-1 here because clearly we're all in different parts. But I'm gonna first start by saying when they cut your lawn for you, so they might have shared area, and they go and make sure they take care of that. Sometimes come onto your side completely, depending on how much space there is.
I have a feeling you have someone who cuts your lawn often, Scott.
Yeah, thanks,
yeah.
Keith.
Yeah.
We've already brought this up.
Yeah.
No, but it's one of those things.
Do you ever cut his lawn?
Oh, if I'm cutting, for sure, I do the front.
Okay.
Because, again, we're in suburbia. There's a lot of sidewalk and driveway and road. There's not a whole ton of grass. So if whoever's out there, it's just we've talked about this before.
Yeah, whoever's out there does it.
They're very much scheduled. So if I'm not out there before Friday, usually in the evening, it's usually cut for me. So thanks again, Keith. I know Chantel is listening. So, big ups to having great neighbors. The other one would be the snow shoveling. So we have a sidewalk, obviously. So it's like shovels your snow. So if they notice you're not there, or if you're away, or the big one for us is there's so many kids walking to school that if whoever's first out, usually will do the sidewalk up until the other person's driveway, which is just a nice touch. And there's nothing worse than we had a neighbor on the other side prior to, and they would literally shovel right up to their lot line, where it would be 2 more pushes and you have the whole thing. And it just felt like a complete FU.
I had that. I had a version of that on my list. I think mine was a little bit more specific. First pick of the second round. Guys, I'm going to go with my second pick here. First pick of the second round, and it's the neighborhood watch guy or girl. It's the neighborhood watch neighbor. So this is the neighbor who keeps an eye on your stuff. Just out of the goodness of their heart, because they care about the neighborhood. This is the person who's always like, oh yeah, I saw a suspicious thingy or whatever it is, or you go away and you're like, can you kind of keep an eye and let me know if there's anything weird or whatever. So the neighborhood watch neighbor is going to be mine.
Yeah, I have a couple neighbors that have like the ring lights or whatever, during doorbells, I guess.
Doorbell,
And I've had one of them send me a photo before and was like, hey, like this random person was on your front step last night at this time or something, like they're keeping an eye. Like I remember one time they had their car broke into in their front driveway and like texted me the next morning, like, hey, just so you know, our car was broken into last night. And like, that's really nice. I don't think we've ever texted about anything except for that. I think that's a really nice neighbor to have.
Yeah. We got a couple of those.
You're neighborly. You're looking out for each other.
Yeah.
I'm my girlfriend lives on a court, and she's kind of like, there's several houses that can all sort of see each other from the driveway. So the kids play outside, but the neighbors are always looking out. Nice to have that kind of person there.
All right, Brad, you got 2 in a row here.
Okay, well, my next one is so the best neighbor that you could possibly have, and this is maybe a little bit personal for me, but the best neighbor is the one who uses your neighbor as your realtor when you sell your house.
I was wondering if that would be talking.
There's nothing worse than a for sale sign across the street from your own house of somebody else. There's nothing worse than that.
I'm surrounded by the theme right now, actually. It really kind of bugs me because I got to look at the names every single time I look out at my house, and there's 2 of them. There's one over here, there's a sold one over here, and there's a coming soon one over here.
That is a nice neighbor. That is a very nice neighbor.
Not to sell it to my neighbors here, but like, I mean, it does matter to me what you sell your house for across the street more than anyone else. So why wouldn't you use me? Because when I sell your house, my house is worth more. Like I literally have my own interest in it, but
that's true.
Yeah. You got a vested interest in it, and you're not going to mess around, and you're going to market the heck out of the neighborhood and talk about how the neighborhood is fantastic. And then when you go to sell,
devil's advocate, guys, are you maybe too invested? You're like, we're going to be so picky. We got to get the best family or person to buy this house instead of maybe the investor, the landlord.
No,
that might
I'm a
pay
professional.
More.
I'm a professional.
You're not Phil Dunphy. Not Phil Dunphy. Phil Dunphy was, remember that episode where the family moved in? They were trying to get rid of it's just, you don't want to be a Phil Dunphy.
I'm a pro.
I mean, you do in a lot of ways, but
I was going to say, I do want to be a Phil Dunphy. That guy's a legend. Big Nick.
One of the most legendary realtors on TV, really. Okay, my next pick is I feel like I took this in the other neighbor draft, but it's something important to me. So it's a good neighbor is somebody who drives slow in your neighborhood, drives
Yeah.
carefully. I do because I think I took it as a bad neighbor was driving too fast in the neighborhood. A good neighbor drives carefully in the neighborhood
Drives
and keeps an
carefully or
eye out.
drives the speed limit? What do you want to?
Oh, I think the speed limit is almost too much. Be careful. Be
What's
safe.
too much? 50? Like, I guess, yeah.
My area would probably be 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just go
kids,
slow. Go
drive
slow.
careful.
Yeah, chill.
Drive
Just
carefully.
chill. You're almost
What's
home.
the rush?
You're almost home.
It's-
Chill out. Yeah.
If you drive fast, the difference between you getting home or not is probably like 15 seconds. Just chill. There's kids,
Yeah.
especially certain times
worth
of
a
day.
life?
And wave when you drive by.
Yeah, give a wave. Is that responsible? That's taking a hand off the wheel. That's not driving carefully. All right, John. Second pick of the third round. Your
Back
third
to me.
pick.
It's going to be the chef, the neighbor, the chef neighbor that's always testing their recipes on you. All right.
That's a good
So
one, man.
That'd be cool.
it's the one who's like, knock, knock, knock. I just made a batch of something and I'm trying them out here. Would you like a dozen cookies that I just made? Like, you're kind of the guinea pig, so that's the chef neighbor or the baker or the one who's always
The
guinea
street chef.
pigging
Is that
or
what you want?
the street chef. Yeah. The street chef, I guess, is the one
They
who's
had a
always
pool
kind of
too. That's the most epic neighbor there is.
the one who's got
so
food and pool. So the
That is
street
nice.
chef, yeah.
Well, I could see you being that guy. You make up a nice little brisket and you want to hand it around. But I think this is just me gushing over my next door neighbor. But he got a smoker before I did, so I was able to try a million foods. And it was like the Tim Allen and Wilson thing, like over the fence. There was one time my brother was over and our neighbor brought over some delicious jerk chicken. And my brother had some. And to this day, he's like, does that neighbor still live next door who gave me the best jerk chicken I've ever had? And I was like, oh, yeah. But he got me into smoking meat. And this is just me gushing over having a great neighbor.
Good for you.
Yeah. So my pick. Yeah.
I'm hungry.
I'm very hungry.
Let's hurry this up, please.
I gotta say, I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but none of my picks have, other than friendly, are been taken. So this is potentially a problem. But I am going to say it's the neighbor that notifies you of deliveries or will take your package and keep it if they think that there's a chance. They know you're not there. They think there's a chance it could get stolen. So helps against the porch pirates, but notifies of deliveries. I'll say.
That's a good one. Yeah, the anti-porch pirate, the neighborhood cop, the neighborhood security guard kind of thing. Just protects all the packages.
It feels like it's almost that edge of too much,
Is it though? Like if you
invasive.
know them enough, and like I guess in a neighborhood like Brad's, where clearly everyone just waves and doesn't care if their neighbors are robbed
because they don't know each other's names.
That's not something that would jump out to you. But if you actually converse with your neighbors and they might know that you're away, they're going to make sure that those major things that get dropped off are not going to get stolen or damaged.
Okay, tell me what constitutes a major thing on your front porch.
So the thing is, I think the grab would be if they know that you're away, or like maybe
Right,
you have plans
okay.
that night and you're gone. I think there's a difference between that and, hey, I noticed that if they your neighbor's jobs a lot of the time. Apparently Brad doesn't, but
I would have no idea what my
if they know you don't get home till later and they see it's a major thing that's sitting on your doorstep, they might say, hey, you got a delivery. And then if you just say, hey, do you mind snagging that for me? It's a nice touch.
I had a neighbor who did that once. So she's done a couple times where I had a delivery and I wasn't there, and she noticed it, and she basically, because she knows I have a Ring doorbell with a thing, and so I could talk through it. And so she rang the doorbell and was just like, "Hey, I just saw your delivery. I'm going to go put it around the back." And so she put it around the back of my house, which was nice. And then kind of waved at my camera there and was like, "I'm putting this here." And so that, like, I was like, "Oh, thank you. I appreciate that." So that's
nice
good.
touch.
But I mean, I don't want somebody to do that every day, because then I'm going to be like, who is taking my stuff?
I'm going to follow that up with just quiet neighbors. You don't want people that, whether you're attached at the townhouse, if you're in a condo, or even you're detached and you're always making a crazy amount of noise. Like if you're quiet, other than maybe your standard things like working on things in your garage, or if your kids are allowed, like that is what it is. But if you're having massive parties all the time and not inviting or not warning, or you're just always yelling a problem. But so quiet neighbors.
Yeah, the ghost neighbor. I had that too. I called the ghost neighbor, the one that you never really see, never really hear. You know they're there, but you never really see them or hear them.
They're cutting their lawn and doing
It
their
is
thing,
like
living their life.
it's the spring when you start hearing your neighbors. In my neighborhood, like in the winter, it's just like dead silence all the time.
All the time.
And then soon people are going to start being outside, and you're going to hear each other.
You hear that chop saw in the background.
Yeah. We have the one neighbor that every morning walks the neighborhood, and often is just walking our street over and over again. Mm-hmm. And every morning I'm either walking our dog or have Pryor with me, and we'll wave and say hello. And hadn't seen them in a long time, so I was kind of a little worried. But then you're realizing it's winter. And yesterday, walking the dog, super nice out, probably 12 degrees at the time. And we start walking by each other, and big smile on her face, and just hey, and it's just like it's been months, like we're coming out of hibernation. Good to see you.
I used to have like a huge hedge between me and my next door neighbor, and I took the hedge down because we were putting up a fence. And for like a week, there was no hedge and no fence, so our yards were just like attached, and it was insane the effect on both of our lives that had. Like how much we felt like we were like on top of each other because there was nothing there in between. And they're big campfire, like big fire pit people all summer long, like 3 days a week. And like they would be like, we didn't want to go and have a fire because if you were in your backyard, it's just like, it's insane. So then as soon as we got the fence up, I mean, things are a lot better. But you need that privacy.
I'm going to say it's the one with out a Wi-Fi password, the one who doesn't protect their Wi-Fi.
That's a great pick.
It's a great neighbor. The great neighbor is the one who has an open Wi-Fi network and doesn't realize how to protect it, giving you free reign. So that's it. Mine is the irresponsible technology person, the one without a Wi-Fi password.
The only thing would be is like you are at home, so you have your own. So why, like, is that?
I do. Important? I mean, I do, but maybe that's somebody else. Maybe maybe these people across the street from me are sharing one network. I don't know. Maybe my neighbors are stealing mine. I don't know.
Yeah, like, your friends or guests are over. It automatically syncs up to your welcome at .net or whatever, and then just free Wi-Fi.
It may not. That might not have been. The number one pick, and I don't know how much hate I'm going to get for that, but
good, though. That was a nice.
I think that really. I think that depends. Like if you lived in like a condo, that's huge.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
you know, if you live in a condo, you could potentially just get rid of your own internet at that point. And they just saved you like $60 to $100 a month.
I did
for my neighborhood. There's no way I'm picking up anyone's internet good enough at all to use it in any way.
No, exactly. This is you're right. Condos that are kind of stacked on top of each other and across the hall. I mean, you can, when I was in a condo, I could kind of open up my phone and pick out like 15, 20 Wi-Fi networks, and one or two of them were not protected. And so
did you find there was a lot of creative names?
So many, but a lot of TV references. Pretty fly for a Wi-Fi, like get your own Wi-Fi. All of these, like, come on. Okay, we get it.
Yeah, Brad, 2 in a row here.
I have 2 more to go.
Well, this is the end of the fourth round.
Okay.
End of the fourth and
low on numbers.
Oh, geez.
You need to phone a friend.
Okay.
One of mine.
This one is pet etiquette. Having good pet etiquette, I think, is huge for a good neighbor. Pretty much just don't have your dog take a crap in my yard. That's basically all that means. And don't have them bark 24/7.
So let me ask you, is that if they're walking their dog, they're not allowed to go on your, like, or is it just
no, they can go on my lawn. Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna
pick it up. Don't leave.
No, that's way too much confrontation for me to think I'm going to stop you from bringing your dog on my lawn. No, I'm not having that deep level of conversation. Don't leave your poop on the yard. That's all. And don't have your dog bark all night long either. That's the main things, I guess.
I think that was actually one of my picks in the bad neighbors draft was the because it's bad, and then it gets all the other dogs going. I have noticed. What do you think about, like, ever since COVID, we'd be walking the dog, and a lot of people got dogs, and a few people in our full blown neighborhood, I wouldn't even say our street, got signs or like rocks that were painted on saying, "Don't have your dog poo here," with like a circle around and the line through. Like I was. It's funny because our dog, like the one specifically, was a rock, and he loved that rock, so he would pee on that rock, and it was a glimmer of joy that would come through me when he would decide to go on that, and I was hoping the neighbor would come out and say, "Hey, didn't you read the rock?" Because there was, at that time, over the year or two, there was about 3 houses across the street that sold that didn't have sidewalks. And I'll say, you know what? It's a shame we didn't meet earlier, because I could have gotten you into one of those houses where you don't have a sidewalk on your side. And I would have really gotten into that confrontation, because I think that's a little much, no?
Yeah, it depends on the neighborhood.
Don't
depends
pee
on
here?
I've never seen it.
No,
two of them within like a 3-street radius. It's like, oh,
I've had a few. I've seen a few of them. I mean, I used to have a little decorative plaque on my thing that was just like, it had no, and it was in the shape of a poop, and it was just like, it was kind of there just sort of for fun. It wasn't like wasn't like a big warning sign. It was more just like, hey, if you don't mind, be a little bit more polite.
John, are you saying you're one of these people?
No, it's fine.
You own 2 dogs, and you were a no poo on my lawn sign?
I have
no
a
pee on my lawn sign?
I have a fire hydrant in front of my house. Every dog in the neighborhood pees on it, and I don't care. They're going to pee on it.
I thought we learned something new about you, John, with the sign, but okay.
I share. Well, okay, so my backyard, there's no fence between mine and my neighbors, and of course their dog runs amok in my backyard, and it's destroyed my lawn. It's completely destroyed my lawn. So that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
That's another bad neighbor situation.
That's a backyard, right?
That's a backyard.
If you have a sidewalk. Anyways, we're off the rails, but
Okay, so my last pick is, as a good neighbor, is the neighbor with the tools, the one that has all the good tools. I can't believe this went to the end.
I thought I was getting this with my last pick.
I was almost there too, guys. Oh, I was right there. Yeah.
There's not a lot. There's not a lot that I've ever actually needed from my neighbors, but my next door neighbor has like a chainsaw, and we've definitely have used that.
Nice.
On many occasions. And I think he likes to use it. So I don't mind being like, hey, I need to come back here and trim this. And he just gets the chainsaw out every summer and does it. That's a cool neighbor to have.
Yeah.
Because then I don't want to buy one. I don't want to buy one.
No. Well, and like for the amount of times they're using certain things, I think that goes hand in hand with the shoveling snow one. We have a couple neighbors that got the snow blowers, and you can tell the ones that just get them because they're so jacked. They'll do like 17 houses straight of sidewalk because they're just like, usually dwindles over time, but it's a nice touch.
Yeah, you spend $1,000 on something and you're going to want to use it, especially because we don't have a whole lot of snow on the ground. It's March and there's not much going on right now. So when it happens, you want to use it.
Like you gotta share.
Usually in the winter, there's like 2 or 3 times in the winter where I'm like, you know what? I wish I had a snowblower. I don't think that happened this winter.
No, we've been spoiled. Do you think we're going to get another snow, or is this it?
No, we're done. No,
should I put the summer tires all
in the next 3 weeks? I'll be on the golf course.
I've only ever golfed in March once, and it was in Ireland. And it's the sweater I'm wearing too, as a matter of fact. Jameson Gold Bra. So this was the global broadcast kind of a thing, and so that took me to Ireland a couple of times for St. Patrick's Day, which is coming up. And that's the only time. It was a beautiful course, the K Club in Kildare in Ireland. But I did that. It was on St. Patrick's Day a couple years ago. So, all right, I think I'm gonna go last. Is this my last pick? This is number 5, right?
Yeah. 2 left.
This is the neighbor who has kids the same age as your kids. And sort of instant automatic friends. So I'm not a father. I don't have children of my own, but definitely the neighbors who have kids the same age as your kids tend to become your friends. They tend to become, the kids' friends, sort of an extra body to kind of watch them, maybe walk them to school.
Yeah, it can be good and bad. It can be good and bad.
It could be bad in the sense that, like, the strength in numbers, and the kids can gang up on the parents, and you might just have a couple of running buck wild. But hey, it's not bad because the parents can sort of bond, and then you have that extra level of trust and things like that. So
I'm going to hold off all my comments on that.
Yeah.
But it is funny that, like my kid we met this other parent and they're like, oh yeah, we just live over here. And then it's like, oh yeah, we're really close neighbors. All of a sudden now we're going to be friends, I guess. It's just it's just crazy how quick it can be like, oh yeah, now we're friends.
Especially if the parents are totally like nothing like you at all, and the kids happen to get along, and you're like, great, now I've got to spend time with these weirdos. Like, okay.
I'm not going on. I'm not going into that.
All right,
There's
I feel like
pros
there's a
and cons. I'm
backstory
seeing
off there. Yeah.
I'm seeing the pro because it's 2024, so I'm
No,
seeing the
no,
positive
no.
side of this.
It is extremely positive. Yeah.
Last pick,
me.
last but not least. I want to go one way because of Brad, but I'll save it for the honorable mentions. I'm gonna say the one that shares ingredients. So there, you ran out of flour, maybe the store's closed, and you just got to go over, and they're gonna help you out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, this is like a
shares.
TV. This is a TV show pick because
From
no
the
one,
80s.
no one goes to their neighbors and say, "Do you have sugar I can borrow?"
Well, I don't
Yeah,
go there.
no.
I would text, and we've done it.
You've done it.
100%.
We did that a couple times too at Michelle's
and
house.
actually, flip side, there was one time their stove went out, and we ended up finishing their beef ribs in our yeah.
I hope they shared them.
Yeah, it's a whole different. It's Pleasantville out here, buddy. I'm telling
Yeah, I
you.
guess
You already
so.
know all the golf courses. You
Oh,
might as well come sell real estate
Holy
with us out here.
jeez!
All right,
So
so let's
that's a good
recap.
one.
So team one, Brad, friendly interactions, the one who uses you to sell their home, drives carefully, good pet etiquette, and lens tools. I actually think your lens tools could be like your second pick. That's a good
That's
one.
a good one. Yeah.
John, open invites to their pool, neighborhood watch person, street chef, open Wi-Fi, no password, similarly aged kids. And then team three, Scott, cuts your lawn, shovels snow, notifies of deliveries, quiet, and shares ingredients. So let's get to the draft room floor. Good English, Scott. Let's get to the draft room floor.
Get to the floor. Get on the floor. Who wants to kick this one off?
I had somebody that shares interests with you, I guess, so you can bond with them.
Mm-hmm.
Someone who offers a helping hand, which kind of the tools thing, I kind of took care of that. I had somebody that keeps the neighborhood clean.
Yeah,
maybe helps out
or
with
maintains their yard, kind of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Good by doing
Or
what
just
they're
like
supposed to.
or like sometimes there has to be like a neighborhood cleanup every once in a while, and like there's you don't have to do it every year, but do it sometimes. That's pretty much it.
I had something like that too. The neighborhood handyman, kind of just like the neighborhood, similar to what you were saying. I just kind of called neighborhood handyman, handy woman, handy person who just helps out and has just kind of says like, oh, I saw that your thingy was loose and I just tightened it for you because I know these houses and mine gets loose and it could break and whatever. That person who's just like the subject matter expert on the house because maybe they live there longer than you. The park in my driveway whenever you want neighbor. So the one who's, if you've got like, townhouses or smaller areas, smaller driveways, it's like, you can use my driveway whenever you want. The neighbor
or parks
who,
in your driveway while you're away, so it
Or-
doesn't look like you're away. That's
another one. That's another good one. Yeah.
Or
that's
just
right.
parks in their driveway, not on their lawn or on the always
just
in front of there's just a million places you can park.
Yeah.
That's not where you're supposed to.
respects the property line. That's the neighbor who gives their friends all of your business card, all of their friends your business cards. So it's similar to what Brad says. The endless supply tools, the ones with good taste in music. So you're not constantly like, what is this crap they're playing out loud all the time. So the ones with good taste in music, especially if it's summer and they're in their backyard or on their patio. The one who carries up your recycling bins, if there's at the end of the driveway and they grab their own recycling bins, the one who grabs your stuff too. I think that's about it. I think that's everything.
Those are some good ones though, John. The only ones I'd say, the neighbor who gardens, the one that always has a drink for you when you're outside doing your stuff, and whether it's a glass of wine hanging with the kids or doing some work, or has the beer for you, it's a nice little touch. But the one that goes against or goes with what Brad had said, Brad hates when people don't decorate for Halloween, and I just said it's the one who gets and decorates for holidays. So if you get the people that make things seasonally fun, so whether it's Halloween, Christmas, whatever it is, those are good neighbors by me. On that note, we've lost
Good
John.
podcast.
Good
See ya.
podcast. Yeah, see you later.
You've been listening to the Drafting Offers Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at the Drafting Offers Podcast and vote for this week's draft champ. That's also how you can get directly in touch with us if you have any questions about this week's show. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and catch every episode on Spotify. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we can't wait for you to join us again for another episode of the Drafting Offers Podcast.